wise man by the name of Stephen Anthony Smith once said, "Stay off the weed." Today's video, I'm telling you guys a cautionary tale of two overseas basketball players that are following something that I think is a trend and something that players overseas need to be wary of and fans of basketball across the world need to understand. Jared Shaw is a 34-year-old Dallas, Texas native and overseas basketball player. He's a name that you should know. You may have heard his story before. He actually got caught trying to smuggle in candy edibles infused with cannabis. That's right, you heard me, cannabis. Obviously, we all know the story of Brittany Griner, and she got bumped at the Russian border for, what was it, a weed pen? A cannabis pen, right? One of those little vape with the cart of cannabis infused oils and all that stuff, and they smoke those carts. And the reason why you should know Jared Shaw's case, and we're going to go a little bit more in depth in it as the video goes along, but Jared Shaw was sentenced to life in prison for bringing in a jar of cannabis gummies. Life in prison in Indonesia. That's the kind of things that people are witnessing in overseas basketball. And we're going to talk about a former NBA player that also lost his position, got tricked out of his position because he just couldn't put down the weed. Montrezl Harrell is another name that people know, right? Another guy that couldn't stay off of it. He played in the NBA for Charlotte, Washington. He played good minutes for the Clippers in playoff series, and he had moments in playoff series. He's a legitimate NBA caliber player. He played in China, and they gave him a drug test in China. He didn't pass. They let him finish out the season. Go ahead, play. You know, we don't care. The season is only but so long in China. They let him go to his next team in Adelaide, Australian NBL. And there is when the CBA released his negative non-passing drug report. He had THC in his system, and that affected his next contract in Australia. Now, for me as a basketball player that does not smoke, it's hard for me to kind of take these situations seriously, and that's why you can see I'm a little jokey. I mean, somebody is facing life, so it's really not a joke. However, it's a little childish to me because these are small habits in a basketball player's life. Like, there's not one basketball player that is addicted to marijuana since they were kids, you know, because you have to be serious at some point in your life in order to be a serious basketball player. And I feel like it happens for most players around the college age where peer pressure gets the best of them. They hear stories about their heroes doing it, and they may feel stressed, and they figure that marijuana is the best stress reliever. But in fact, it's so bad for an athlete. And now it's obviously not banned anymore. It's not on the banned substance list in American major sports. But that doesn't mean that the rest of the world thinks like that. Let's get into these stories. We're going to start with Jared Dwayne Shaw. As I mentioned, 34-year-old hooper from Dallas, Texas. He was arrested May 7th. And let me just stop this to say, Jared Shaw, you're 34 years old. You know how it goes overseas. He had been playing in Indonesia since 2022. That's 3 years in the same league. At 3 years, you kind of know what you can get away with and what you can't. And obviously, maybe he felt like he was slightly above the law because when you're overseas, you are afforded privileges that most people that live in these countries are not afforded. For one, we don't pay our own taxes in most countries. There's no other resident in these countries that don't pay taxes. We don't pay rent. We don't pay car insurance. There's so many things that we're shielded from as professional basketball players, and maybe he got a little too comfortable. I see that happen a lot of times overseas. Even me, some players that I have played with, which I will never say who it is. Some players do this thing, right? And this is why it's important for me to speak on this because I don't want other players to get caught up in the same mess. Some players do this thing, and I don't know if they do it within travel within the States, but I have players that smoke marijuana, and they'll roll up a joint before they get on the plane, roll up two joints, smoke one before they get on the plane, and then they'll put the second one in their checked luggage. I kid you not. So they have one or two blunts just sitting in their checked luggage, which for me, I'm like, dude, you're traveling country lines. Like, what are you doing, man? But guys are really addicted to this thing, right? And this is something that and gambling is two things that I think is going to hold back hoopers going forward because it's just getting more and more normalized. And especially if you're an overseas guy, it's really not that normal. So let's get back to Jared. In May 7th, after police raided his apartment in Tangerang, just outside the capital of Jakarta, and seized 132 pieces of cannabis candies, says the Soekarno Hatta Airport police chief. So there's actual video footage of him getting carried away by officials and him screaming at the top of his lungs saying, "What are you guys doing? You got the wrong guy. It's not me. It's not me. I'm innocent." He was not, in fact, innocent. And that's what kind of pains me as a ally, overseas hooper, is I have to be the one to deliver this message. It's not cool to be smuggling paraphernalia, drug paraphernalia across country lines. Like that's not dope. Even if you didn't get caught, like you're risking way more than what your reward can be. Your reward is you get to be high for the next 2 hours. But the risk is you could be facing life in prison if you're in the wrong country. Let's move on. Shaw has played for several clubs in the Indonesian Basketball League since 2022, as I mentioned. And he signed a contract with the Tangerang Hawks last year. He told police during interrogation that he wanted to share the cannabis candy with fellow basketball players. 30.6 ounces. Now, I'm not a big drug guy. I never was, never will be. 30 ounces. I don't know what 30 ounces looks like. Like if somebody put 30 ounces in front of me, I wouldn't be able to eyeball it. Somebody in the comments let me know how much 30.6 ounces is because to me, it's a significant amount. That sounds crazy. And of course, he had the excuse. He didn't deny that they were his. He had the excuse that it just wasn't mine. I just wanted to share it with my teammates. The Indonesian Basketball League banned Shaw from playing for life, said its chair. I'm not even going to attempt to say his name because it's way too difficult. We don't tolerate players, administrators, or anyone in the field involved in drugs. There is no room for drug users in the basketball world. And that's something that, as I said, it pains me to say this as a fellow American overseas basketball player, but there's no room for that, man. Like, I also know guys that, and I don't want to give too much away. And as I mentioned, I'll never say anybody's name, but guys that got paid on the first, and by the 15th, they needed an advance on the next salary payment because they spent it all on drugs and gambling. As I mentioned, those are the two main things that's going to be holding back basketball players from now on. And there's a lot of cases that's been popping up of guys betting on games in the NCAA. The NCAA, don't forget, these kids are 18 years old. Yeah, they're making money now, but who wouldn't want more money? That's happening. That's not this video. This video is about the drug addictions that we're seeing in our community. And when I say our community, I'm talking about the basketball community, but both are just as extreme. And now let's switch to Montrez because Montrez is a case that I know a little bit closely because I follow the NBL more than I follow the Indonesian Basketball League. I got ties in the NBL, right? And there's been instances in the NBL where the NBL will turn the other cheek to domestic players. And it's not just the NBL, by the way. That's every league. If a national player, a local player, is caught breaking some rule or whatever the case is, the import cannot break the same rule and expect the same punishment. So in Montrezl Harrell's situation, he tested positive in April for THCA. That's a precursor to THC. It's a psychoactive compound in marijuana. He was tested positive while playing for the Xinjiang Flying Tigers in the CBA. As I mentioned before, he got bagged in April. Nobody told him he got bagged. He spent the whole summer thinking that he's good. Signed a new contract with the Adelaide 36ers. He played with them last season and played very well last season. He was a 20-10 guy in the Australian NBL. Played alongside one of the better guards in the NBL. That guard, Kendrick Davis, ended up getting moved on to another team, but his team is still solid, and he's the man. Montrezl Harrell found a home. All that craziness, that animation and rah-rah stuff that Montrez does, the Australian crowd was eating all that up. He was in the perfect position as a hooper with his game. They love the energy. It's not necessarily a European atmosphere, but it's a good vibe at these Australian NBL games. And he was the one powering the league. A player that shall remain nameless got caught for more extreme drugs, but that player was a national. He was a local guy. He wasn't an American import. He was a hometown kid that had a big name in Australia. So maybe Montrez thought, man, if he can get away with it, I can too. That's not how it works. The announcement of the positive test was only made 2 months later after he had re-signed with Adelaide. As I mentioned before, they let him sign with his team, his now current team, and then now that team is not going to let him play. Harrell also played for the Lakers, the Wizards, and he's currently serving a provisional ban, awaiting a final penalty from the China anti-doping agency. So he's already kicked off the team at Adelaide in Australia. But now he may not be able to play in China, which is tough for him because those are two of the biggest markets where his game kind of translates perfectly, right? You got the Chinese Basketball Association where a big man like Montrez, who's extremely dominant, can just play your game. We're gonna give you the ball, go get 20. They don't in China, they don't care how you get it, just get it. You take that play style and you match it up against a EuroLeague play style where it's more methodical. The team gets involved. You play a specific role within the offense. You gotta play defense. That's the big thing with the CBA and the NBL is there's not a huge emphasis. I'm not saying that there's no emphasis. There's just not a huge emphasis on defense. The big man can play and drop defense the whole game, and you'll get away with it. There's a ton of pick and roll. This ISO style basketball that kind of mirrors the NBA style basketball, but when you go to the EuroLeague, it's something totally different. And his two markets now, he's got the bad reputation. Will another Australian team sign him? Possibly. I don't know. Maybe they will. But it's going to be, an asterisk that's next to his name. And there's been a lot of back and forth between Montrez and the team because at some point, they didn't really tell him why he got cut. They cut him first and no explanation. It just said, you violated team rules. So he was speaking out against his team. And like I said, he's well liked there. So it was creating unnecessary tension with the team. But that's what happens. You're not above the law when you go overseas. Let this be a learning moment to everyone. Every hooper out there. If you are smoking dope, doing drugs, gambling, stop now, man. It's not worth it. The risk is never worth the reward unless you're an NBA player where they literally turn the other cheek and it's like they almost want you to do that. But any other level of basketball is not a thing. You're not cool if you're a high schooler smoking dope. You're not cool if you're in college smoking dope because you can't even be in college smoking dope. You're not cool if you're overseas smoking marijuana. Stay off the weed. That's what my boy Stephen A. Smith said, and that's what I'm saying to you today. That's been Chip Overseas. If you guys like the video, like the video. If you got a comment on the video, comment on the video. Let me know what you think. Am I tripping? I don't think guys that hoop should be smoking weed. I'm standing on that. And most importantly, subscribe. If you subscribe to me, I subscribe to you. Peace.